Anthropic just dropped something kind of insane. They say they found a hidden workspace inside Claude. Basically, a place where the AI is thinking to itself before it says a single word. Here is what you actually need to know. Normally, when we study an AI, all we get is the final answer. The output. It's a black box. We judge it purely by whatever comes out the other end. But this new paper, it's called Verbalizable Representations Form a Global Workspace, says there's a whole layer underneath that. A little mental scratchpad, and they named it JSpace. So how do you even read a thought inside an AI? They built a tool for it. They call it the J-Lens. Here's the clever bit. For every single word in Claude's vocabulary, the J-Lens finds the exact internal pattern that makes Claude more likely to eventually say that word. Basically, instead of reading the final answer, they mathematically fast-forward from the middle of the network straight to the output. And that lets them peek at which concepts Claude is holding in its head while it is still thinking. And when they do that, you get this. A live readout of the words Claude is turning over inside. Ask it to count to 5 and think about it, and you can literally watch counting and 5, and even consciousness light up in there before it says a single thing. Now here's the wild part. This JSpace is tiny. We're talking a few dozen concepts at a time, less than a tenth of everything happening inside the model. Over 90% of the network is doing other stuff. But that tiny space is special. Other parts of the model read from it around 100 times more than a normal pattern. It's basically a shared whiteboard the whole model keeps checking. Oh, and where it sits matters. This workspace isn't everywhere. It lives in the middle layers. The early layers are like the senses taking things in. The late layers are the mouth forming the words. And right in between sits this workspace, the part that actually juggles the ideas. And this is where it gets spooky because it connects to neuroscience. There's a theory of human consciousness called global workspace theory. The idea that a thought becomes conscious when it gets broadcast to the rest of your brain. Anthropic is saying Claude grew something that works functionally kind of like that. On its own. Nobody designed it. Okay, but that's a huge claim. So proof, they ran a whole battery of experiments. First one, they can literally swap a concept. They find the soccer pattern, swap it out for rugby, and Claude's answer flips from soccer to rugby. They're not editing the words, they're editing the thought. And it's not a fluke. It works across model sizes, haiku, sonnet, opus, and the bigger the model, the more reliably that swap actually changes the answer. Here's my favorite, two-step reasoning. They ask a question where Claude has to work out an in-between fact it never says out loud, like secretly thinking spider to answer how many legs something has. And that hidden step shows up in the readout, even though Claude never typed it. Same with math. Ask it 4 plus 17 times 2 plus 7, and you watch 21, then 42, then the answer 49 appear in its head in order like scratch work it never wrote down. So the silent thought is really there, and it is really being used. They can even steer it. Tell Claude hold citrus fruits in mind, while it does something totally unrelated, and orange and lemon and fruit light up in the workspace. It's got a train of thought you can actually nudge. And one concept does a lot of work. That single France pattern. They reused it to answer the capital, the language, the continent, the currency. Same internal concept, plugged into completely different questions. Now the big test. What happens if you delete the top concepts out of this space? Simple stuff, trivia, sentiment, basic grammar, totally fine. But multi-step reasoning, translation, analogies, they fall off a cliff, nearly zero. So this little workspace is doing the actual heavy thinking. Now big pause, because the internet already ran with this. No, this does not mean Claude is conscious. Anthropic says it flat out. Their experiments do not show Claude can have experiences or feel things the way you do. They're studying access consciousness. Can it report and reason about its own thoughts, not whether there is actually anyone in there having an experience? Totally different thing. And their workspace is not a brain. No feedback loops, none of the full machinery the real consciousness theories describe. It just happens to share some of the functional behavior. So why should you care? 2 words: AI safety. Anthropic frames this as a tool for auditing a model, checking what it is really doing under the hood. If we can read the thought before the AI says it, we might catch a model planning to lie or hiding its reasoning before it ever reaches the output. We'd be reading intent, not just words. And that's the real shift here. For years, we judged AI by what it said. This is the first real glimpse of what it is thinking while it decides what to say. Is it a perfect window into an AI's mind? No. Is it the closest we have ever gotten? Honestly, yeah. And that is a very big deal. That's the story.